Okay, we're taking a look at Freeman's Farm, 1777, designed by Maurice Suckling and published by Worthington Games. And this game just came out a few weeks ago. I just had my copy now for about a week. And we're going to take a look at the board, the pieces, tell you a little bit about this fascinating and very innovative game. Now, Freeman's Farm has nothing to do with agriculture. Of course, it's about the first Battle of Saratoga. It took place on September 19th, 1777. Now, the game is not Burgoyne's operational plan to drive Gates from Bemis Heights. It's literally the tactical battle that took place around the Freeman's Farm. Now, historically, Burgoyne split his army into three columns. He had Fraser's column move inland, try to kind of outflank the Americans. He himself commanded the center with General Hamilton, and they moved by this center route. And General Riedesel, with the Germans and the heavy guns, would move down the river road. Now Arnold reluctantly, well, it was Gates who was reluctant. Arnold wanted to sally out and meet the British in the forested area. Gates finally relented, and Arnold and Poor's brigade and other regiments collided with Burgoyne's center column here at Freeman's Farm. And the game we're going to look at is literally just this tactical battle of Freeman's Farm. Now, I'll admit when I first saw the advertisements for the game, I was a bit leery because I wasn't sure how you could do a tactical game on the Battle of Freeman's Farm, whether there was enough there, especially using this unique system that Maurice came up with. But I decided to take the plunge. I bought the game, and I do not regret the fact that I did. I've been studying Burgoyne's campaign since 1969. I visited the battlefield several times, so I'm very familiar with the ground here. And I can say that this is a very innovative and new system, and well done, Maurice. Now, this is the setup. Each of these little wee wooden blocks represents a prime American formation, mainly brigades. Nixon's brigade, Patterson, Glover, Poor, and Learned. For the British, you've got Fraser's column, Hamilton's column, Riedesel's German column, Phillips' heavy guns, and Bremen's counters here are the Army Reserve. Now, Bremen was actually German. I would have loved to see the Bremen counters actually in green, which represents the Germans. But since Bremen is an Army Reserve, I can see why they chose red. Personally, I would have liked to have them green, but that's neither here nor there. So this game is not about the movements, the strategic plan to outflank the Americans. It's the tactical battle of Freeman's Farm. Now, I did point out to the designer, I corresponded with him, I asked about the American artillery, which we know was not actually in the Battle of Freeman's Farm. But I understand and agree with the designer's game decision. The artillery here is up in Bemis Heights, and it can affect things slightly on the right flank, so I don't mind it being included. But no tactical guns were with the Americans at Freeman's Farm. And indeed, there's no British guns here either. They're really showing the heavy guns that Phillips had on the British left flank. Now, when I first saw the game, I said, well, where can this game go when the units are really in fixed positions? And these arrows indicate the very limited places that these units can go. But with the use of cards, and this is a card-driven game, there's a lot of variables in here. Over here, you've got an American deck of cards, a British deck of cards, and these tactical cards which can be purchased by either player. The order of battle is kind of neat because each formation, like Learned, Poor, Glover, and so on, have their own little card. So for all intents and purposes, the information for Learned's brigade is all on this card, as is Poor, Glover, Patterson, and so on. The British have the same arrangement. Fraser, Hamilton, Riedesel, Phillips. You get a Burgoyne card, of course, the Army commander, and Bremen. The Americans also get two cards, one for Arnold and one for Gates. So the information on the cards along with the cards you draw, drive the game system. Okay, looking at the components, we do get the wooden counters, blue for the Americans, red for the British, green for the Germans on the redesign. You get a 12-page booklet. Easy to read, easy to understand. I was very impressed with the rules. I had a couple of clarifications I had to ask the designer, but nothing major. You get a good diagram here showing you the setup for the game. Now, the game is not big, but it does take a lot of room. I mean, it's going to fit on any dining room table, no problem there. But you can see the cards take a bit of room, your cards that you pull, and of course these markers. So it's going to leave a bit of an imprint space-wise. Now, for the purposes of the video, I've placed all the cards the same direction so we can see them. Of course, if you're playing in a two-player game, the British would have his cards turned around facing him, and the American player would have his cards facing his direction. There is a solitaire game, and that's included in the game card for solitaire play. So that's kind of nice. Solitaire games being kind of popular these days. On the flip side is the Freeman's Farm Player Aid, which gives you all kinds of relevant information. Now, I'm not going to get into all the details of combat, but I will say that this is one heck of a very innovative system. I'll try, as I might, to describe to you how the game plays. Now, in the setup for the game, each player is going to take his deck of tactical cards. He's going to shuffle them. Then he's going to select 6 cards. He'll look at them. And from those 6, he's going to select 3 that he may keep, and that is his starting hand. So just completely randomly, I'll just take these 3 and set them down. The British player, of course, will do the same. He'll shuffle his deck of cards. He'll take 6 cards, but select 3, and I'll just randomly just take these 3. So the starting hand for each side would be 3 cards. Okay, let's do an example. The British move first in this game. Let's say, for the sake of argument, they decide to play the Phillips artillery card. So he'd put the card face up so the American player can see it on his side of the board. And you'll notice there is 2 little wee momentum chit blocks on the card. So the British player would take 2 momentum chits and place them on his side of the board. He's gained 2 momentum. Since it is the Phillips card, he'll be activating Phillips. All the information on Phillips' card is here. Now, each of the cards, when you begin the game, you take a momentum chit and start it at 10. That's the morale. Each time you activate a formation, you move the morale chit marker down 1. And then literally on the card, it just tells you what you can do. So Phillips is activated. Now I'll bring the card closer, and so we'll see what he can do. It says, if in Phillips number 1, move to Phillips number 2 and attack the American artillery. If he's already in Phillips number 2, he can attack the American artillery. So in this case, Phillips is in number 1, so it says he can move to number 2. So just move the camera down here a bit. And Phillips takes his 3 guns here and moves them to position number 2. Now that's the British turn, except in this case, in every turn, he draws another card, take that discard, into his hand. In this case, he gets the Fraser card. So that's kind of what you're doing every single turn. British will play a card, American will play a card. Let's do one more phase just for the sake of argument, see what the Americans can do. Okay, the Americans have 2 poor cards and Nixon. And let's say for the sake of argument, they decide to play the Nixon card. Well, just like the British player did, he grabs 2 momentum markers, puts them on his side of the board, and then activates Nixon. Now, Nixon is over here on the right, and he can't really move anywhere. So what can he do? Well, he could activate the American artillery for one. It says here, activated by Patterson, Glover, or Nixon. So, just like the British turn, because Nixon is activated, we take the morale marker and move it down one notch. But he transfers his move really to the American artillery. What can the American artillery do? Well, it says they can attack Phillips number 1. Phillips isn't there anymore. Attack Phillips number 1 -2 to the read as L -2 to the dice, or attack Phillips number 2. Well, Phillips is at number 2 position, so I think that's what he'll do. And it says right on the card how many dice you roll, which is 4. And here's where the combat system is kind of innovative. So we're going to take 4 dice and roll and see what the Americans get. Okay, so the American is rolling 4 dice, and he's looking on this table to see what kind of results we get. So, as it turns out, he gets a 6, 2, 6, 1. Okay, well that's great, because see, the 2 6s here match up. He's got, and no matchups here. So, remove 1 defender block. He's got a casualty on Phillips. So, Phillips removes 1 block. Got an artillery duel, and the Americans win. Now, there's a lot more to this game than that. The cards for Horatio Gates, Benedict Arnold, have all kinds of special capabilities that will modify the action. When the morale of units gets down to a certain level, for example here at 5 it says test, you're going to have to roll to see if your brigades break. On top of that, on each card, you get special instructions for each card. Each unit has special capabilities. Now, for players who capture the Freeman's farm space, you'll get certain advantages. But the object of the game isn't to just capture Freeman's farm. To actually win the game, you have to destroy 3 formations of the enemy. So if the British destroy 3 formations of the Americans, they instantly win the game. Conversely, for the Americans, they destroy 3 British formations, they win the game. So it's very much about casualties. It's literally the Battle of Freeman's Farm. Now, one of the things you can do, instead of activating a command, you can use your momentum chits that you've been accumulating to buy tactics cards. And the tactics cards are handled in a little bit different way. Now, I know we're a little bit far here, but what you do is you draw 3 cards and you expose 3 cards at a time. And when those cards are exposed, you can use your momentum chits to buy one of these cards. For example, if you wanted to buy this card, it would cost you 3 momentum chits. Let's just take a look at one. This one says, remove any selected enemy tactics card to the discard pile. What does this one say? 1. Any 3s the attacker rolls removes the die for the duration of the combat this turn. So these tactical cards will help you in the battle. Of course, you're going to have momentum chits to buy them. So, what's this game really about? Is it a strategy game? Well, it's not a strategy game in the sense that you have a lot of latitude in where you move your troops. As I said, Burgoyne's plan is already in motion. Germans on his left flank, Burgoyne in the center, Fraser on the right. But where the nuances and the game comes in is how you use those forces. Do you destroy American units, move in, fill in the gap? Do you wait and allow momentum chits to accumulate if you can, then go in with a lot of tactics cards? Of course, the beloved dice in all games changes things, so it's that combination of tactical cards, the way you handle your troops, the way you handle morale, the way you use your tactics cards will determine the winner. Now, Worthington traditionally uses a base 6 system for a lot of their games. which I think hurts them in many senses, in many ways. But this game is a bit more sophisticated because with the doubling up of the results, you need double numbers to really accomplish something big. I think the luck factor is mitigated to some degree. Is there luck? Of course there's luck. Any good war game will have to have luck in it. But you put all these things together, all these different order of battle cards, the tactics cards, the strategy, the dice, you've got yourself one fine game. Now I see the initial comments on the game on Board Game Geek have been very favorable, and I certainly am disposed to give it a very favorable review myself. I've seen some people say that they would love to see other battles using the same system, but I'm not as convinced that this system, being so unique, is going to be adaptable to every battle you can think of in the 18th century. For example, I don't know if the Battle of Cowpens would work the same way with this system, or the Battle of Monmouth, or any other battles. This might be a unique system that is good for this battle. I don't know. I'd have to see what the designer comes up with. But my sense of the thing is that it's so unique that it's really best for Freeman's Farm. Now, I haven't got into a lot of things like these skirmish counters, which make a difference. They're kind of neat the way they work. The fact that General Riedesel can move, come in here on the flank of anybody that's in the Freeman's Farm. So there is some movement in it. Example, Poor could move into the Freeman's Farm here, have a close range fight with Hamilton. So there's a lot here, and I think you get a lot of bang for your buck with this game. That's all I'm going to say about Freeman's Farm. I would rate it as sort of an introductory game. It's the kind of game you could teach your wife or your girlfriend, or show your kids how to play, to learn a bit of history and have a lot of fun. I think the game can be played in, the game we played. So in closing, I guess I can make a comment about the cover artwork, because someone asked a question on Board Game Geek. He asked, why is this fellow looking up at the sky and yelling? Well, I've seen the complete painting, and actually the painting extends a bit further up. These are Morgan's Riflemen. That's the clearing of the Freeman Farm in the background. Morgan's Riflemen, some of them, were actually up here in the trees, in the treetops. And this officer, I don't know if it's meant to be Morgan himself or not, is yelling up to some of the men up in the trees. And their strategy was to kind of pick off the officers. And we can see one guy going down here on horseback. Anyway, I think for a first board game effort, I think this is Maurice's first board game. Although looking at his credits, he's got some impressive credits in the computer game industry. But for a first game with an innovative system, I think he's done very well. So for me, it's a thumbs up for Freeman's Farm 1777. Thank you for watching.